What's going on? We're back in it. We are live. We're talking. We'll do a little bit of news rundown, and then I'm going to talk about new project wrapping up, getting submitted, and some of the process. Let's frame it that way. So tomorrow, obviously, Film 3 on Thursdays. The AI Film 3 Festival in Arizona is taking place this week that this is recorded. And we'll be doing kind of live coverage of that event. I believe I have one film in that event, Anunnaki, Origin of Samaria, which is also an ebook and audiobook. I'm kind of out of the loop on the event, but happy to hear about and learn about it tomorrow, which, obviously, by the time that this is available on podcasts, that will be well past and over, but you'll be able to go look at some stuff in review and see how it went. Maybe catch up on some indie filmmakers. The space, I would say, is kind of similar to indie writing, indie authors, publishing scene in a way. The underground, the attempt to break through, similarly shaped issues there. Finally got October's article out. I'm late on it, I'm late by like a week, fundamentally because I'm bogged down, been bogged down. Hit some burnout, got a little bit sick in the month of October as it is, and stuff got pushed back a little bit. It's not an incredibly long article either, as it turns out, which it's like, well, shorter, should have been easier to get done with. But in terms of priorities, it just was not one comparatively. And even though I had started on it in a timely manner, I wasn't able to get back to it. But it is up there. It is on the topic of layout and design, which has been a constant presence and task in my mind, in my days, really all of this year, but very much this last month as I've been getting my newest project ready to launch. Take a look. I'm kind of swapping these over to paid articles over on Substack because, I think they should be. I think I put out a lot of free stuff, a lot of free content, even on Substack. But I'm kind of getting into these articles are getting into a place where I think there's real value, and help me out, make it worth my while, too. Videos performed decently this month. Books have performed on average. So, that's pretty good. I assume, it's going to be a little while until I get all the numbers back. I kind of run, when you're doing the statistics for these distribution channels, these sales channels, you'll get some near real time data. You will then get some data that's a month behind. You will also get some more data that's like 60 days behind, 2 months behind. So it adjusts, your perspective on what you did, how well you did promoting. I assume that the numbers will move above average, decently above average, which has happened all throughout this year. Hitting some milestones this year on book numbers. Very, very happy about, very, very pleased that, this stuff is finding an audience, that people are getting into the stuff that I make here and there. Also, last thing I would say is the session from 2 weeks ago is up on podcasts as well. If you are listening to this right now, you should know that, we're always kind of putting these out 2 weeks after to coincide with the live Twitter space. But if you aren't hanging out for the live Twitter space, maybe think about doing that. Maybe this is your chance to actually join the conversation instead of just having me talk at you. It's fine either way, But I think the real exchange is the bigger value. Real time, high fidelity information exchange. At any rate, let's get into what I'm really kind of focused on right now. Couldn't be less focused on it right now, just as a result of kind of my deadlines and timelines on stuff. Every year since 2019, I've put out a print book. This year will be the same. But I decided I wanted to try to do a hardback because I have never done it before. And also it's a new offering on KDP. And also the book that I've been working on, Daily Historical Facts. Here we go. Daily History Facts. Kind of warrants it. It's a really big book. It's like 400 pages. There's somewhere between 600 and 700 images. There might be over 700 images. I have not counted them all. I have not had time to count all the images, but I know just in general, as a result of there being roughly 2 images per page, some have 3, some have 1, that I'm probably over 700, just given how many days there are. But also, that's really kind of what that project has been about. It's sort of going back to, the roots where my self-publishing journey started with Chicago 1893, which is heavily pictorial. Word counts are comparable, actually. This one obviously doesn't read in any sort of linear way. Let me rephrase that. Doesn't read in any sort of narrative way. Purely linear, temporal, You don't have to read it in order. I originally I had this idea I was going to make an appendix or something to kind of help readers navigate through in a topical way. But, the book is expensive to manufacture, and golly, adding all that in would only increase the price. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Just the nature of how KDP works, the hardback thing, paperback thing, some of these choices that you have. Jaji was kind of surprised to learn that these choices affect your print cost. That's fair. I think she's only done editorial. But if you don't have to care about color pictures, well then that changes things considerably. There's kind of like 3 different tiers of options. There's like cream paper with black ink, white paper with black and white, and then white paper full color. And the costs are dramatically different. I know in the indie scene, it's kind of like, well, let's try and make these things as cheap as possible for readers because we're competing for eyes and audience against the traditional publishing industry. But, are we? There's always some perspective to be had on making the work viable, economically profitable. The print cost alone for daily history facts is over $30. So if you're familiar with how Amazon does it, they will give you the print cost, $30 for a laminate cover hardback, full color. Seems exorbitant to me, generally speaking. But we're not talking about having a run of books, doing 100 or 1,000 or whatever. We're doing print on demand. This is making one book. I sense that there's some markup, even at that one book level, that is somehow compressing across the spectrum to the 50 print set or 100 print set. I haven't talked to a printer, and standalone, I don't think that's the right word I want to say, an independent printer, manufacturer of books in a few years. It's been a few years. And I remember when I had talked to this guy that the numbers he gave me for getting a 50 run or 100 run were basically in the same ballpark as what Amazon was doing. It was kind of a shock, and it occurred to me that the traditional publishing industry is competing in that same way, but they have, all the marketing, and they have the infrastructure and distribution and relationships and all the rest, to kind of hopefully make it work. The indie press side of things, I think, might be actually better situated for viability than the traditional market, which traditional publishing industry, the big houses, which resemble, I think at this point, really the same sort of scenario as Hollywood, basically making all the money off of one movie to make another 9 viable, account for the losses. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but that, I would say, is probably a fair assessment. Now, at over $30, Amazon machine will tell you what the minimum price that you can set for a book with the 60% royalty for writers. So they're going to take 40%. They are also going to tell you, what the cheapest, how much or little they're willing to make off of that, as if they aren't making anything off of the manufacturing as well. Because remember, their manufacturing costs are comparable back to the independent printer doing a run of 100, And Amazon is making a lot of books, but it's in this that has occurred to me that they're kind of double dipping, which whatever, what are my options? That they're serving as a printer, but they're also serving as a retailer, and they're kind of getting you coming and going. And then if you use their ISBN, you're locked in to their platform. You can't use their ISBN anywhere else. It's funny that I've read that a bunch of times, but it's only kind of just occurred to me that they tell you oh yeah, no, you can't use this anywhere else, which most places, when I would look around, they'd be like, well, we're not going to accept it. It had not clicked in my brain that it wasn't an issue of them not accepting it. It was an issue of Amazon not allowing it. Fine, cool, whatever. That said, that lock-in, that sort of gatekeeping that's occurring there, I just think that Amazon needs to be very, they need to be giving us a lot more, because things are shifting out in the world. And I would say the indie publishing, not indie publishing, but the small press, indie press scene is, I think, sorting things out against Amazon's, against trad publishing, and I just believe that there's something over the horizon. I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but I just have this sense, and maybe I will think about it more when I'm finished with these audiobook projects for this year. I can start to think about the publishing industry instead of being an artist or whatever, author. So that said, if you set at their minimum price on Amazon, that doesn't mean you make anything. You could set to their minimum price and you will still you'll make $0 off of it. You could be selling a book that costs, $50 or whatever, and you're going to make nothing out of that, because they are saying we need this much more on top of what we're making off the printing as well. So then, you're pushed to push a little higher. I don't know. I'm not sitting there with acting like I'm on the dial on a fader, just playing around with this stuff and trying to make sense out of it. But it is what it is. I don't begrudge Amazon. They've created a great opportunity for us. It's on me that I make these overly intricate, or I don't know, overproduced projects that are just a lot of heavy lifting and expensive. It is what it is. I should be making, if I could be producing projects that are cheaper to produce, then I could be finding avenues for the stuff that is, different. That's on me. It's not like this is the first time I'm making this mistake. I did it a number of times. Getting into fiction was really two exercises: the writing exercise, the exploration of that creative opportunity, but also on the business side of it, to understand how lowering the production cost creates greater opportunity for market viability. That's certainly occurred with some of the fictional short stories that I've been doing over the last couple of years. I'm going to continue to do those things. It's so strange to watch, sort of like over the last handful of years, like certain projects, jump ahead. Others stay really steady. Others kind of like come out of the gate really strong. Some feel like sleepers and have performed better than you thought that they had. It's really difficult to the forest from the trees sort of scenario. There is, I think, the analogy that we would make for it. But yeah, that's kind of like what's been on my mind. I have just a slew of stuff yet to do to get this thing out. It's all loaded up. Let me say that. It's loaded up onto Amazon. It's ready. The pricing's all there. Everything, all the assets are there. Wringing my hands over getting the PDF manuscript in shape. I literally had to make some content changes, pictorial stuff, make some adjustments. As I was proofing it, I discover things, that didn't occur to me earlier. I had used the same picture for a personality 2 times, and I don't like doing that. So I went and dug up another one, swapped it out. Another case, I had made a slight adjustment to something to basically accommodate the page, and it, during the compression, exporting it and then seeing it, it just became very obvious, visually obvious, that I had done that thing. So I went back in and kind of cleaned that up and straightened it out so that it looked better, and it has. So that's cool. And, you got to proof your stuff. I had run into this issue where, for some reason, when I would export to PDF, it was just jumbling up all of the images. It was just taxing, because it was using all of the location information, but it was like moving images around. So it was a mess, and it was driving me nuts for a little while. I thought I was going to have to really get my hands dirty on fixing it. But I discovered another option, which is to print a PDF, and it came out perfectly fine every single time I did that. And I had to do that 4 times as I was proofing all the pages and everything. making adjustments here and there. So I am confident to say that that works better than the exporting to PDF. I have no idea why, but it is that way, you know. So got that all cleaned up. I got super burnt out on editing audio. I've edited a lot of audio this year, and I don't love doing it. You know, I don't mind mixing. Mixing's cool. Editing sucks. Recording is also cool, but editing, not fun. I've got one chapter left to do preliminary edits for Daily History Facts. And then I've got to pound through kind of sequencing edits to get everything dialed in terms of runtime and, spacing and stuff like that. So that will be much, much easier. I was grinding on it too, because I was just like waking up super early and then getting right into it and then pounding on the stuff. I did like most of the book over the course of like a week, and then and I had recorded the book not that long ago, the end of September, I think. So between the hardback finalization production and the audiobook production, this is the 11th audiobook I've done this year. It is the 12th audiobook I've done in less than a calendar year, because I actually released an audiobook in December or November of last year. Can't remember. I think it was December. So, I've just been like ripping on these things, and it's good. I've learned a lot. I cannot complain about the results, and I shouldn't complain about doing the work. But I'm just saying that I hit a wall on desiring to do it and needed a little bit of break. And then I also kind of got sick for 3 or 4 days, and just like took me out. Was very much unproductive. Just hanging on for some of those days, and fell behind a little bit, plainly, simply. So I've had to scramble to make up that time. Luckily I've timed things out decently this year in terms of like trying to work ahead, trying to understand, how long it's going to take to do the production and manufacturing and all the rest of this stuff across the board. I started laying out this book, like June or something? May, maybe June. Started really getting into the manufacturing of the manuscript in February, I think, sometime around there. So I've spent a lot of time with this content, and I've started producing this project in 2020, and it's finally kind of taking a physical form, some final form. For the meantime, I'll revisit this stuff in the future. I know there will be a second edition of this book, because there's more that I would like to do with what it has. As I mentioned before, the appendix doesn't even exist. But also there's some things that, you have to say good enough on, either writing wise, pictorially, as it is for this layout. You just have to say, this is as good as I can do right now, given everything else I've got to do. And we can revisit it and button it up a little bit more. Also, I would like to do more video stuff, properly produced video stuff with this. There's just so many assets. There's so much technology kind of evolving that there's a lot more to do with this stuff. And I intend to do it. I don't know when I will. I'm not going to turn around and get started on it again. I need a break on this particular project for a little while. And I have other stuff I want to work on, fundamentally. So that's, I'm thinking about video a lot more. And that's where I'm going to spend some more time after I get my final audiobook finished for this year. I've got 2 video projects. Ultimately, I think it's 7 short videos, and some music to do, stuff like that. So that's kind of like where my mind is headed. I've been sitting on Volume 3's video series, the Exploring Our National Parks Volume 3 project, since the beginning of this year. I haven't touched it since maybe April. Been a long time. So want to get that done, want to get that out, want to get that into people's eyes and ears. So that's sort of what's on my mind next. And I've got other stuff I'm writing for release next year, and thinking about that stuff and where it will land. Very much looking forward to not breaking myself on audiobooks for a little while. I love what I've been able to accomplish thus far this year, but there's other things I need to invest my time into, and for me. And there's also a lot of lessons I've learned from audiobooks this year, and I want to better dial into the information that has emerged out of all of these experiments. So, hey, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk again before too long.